Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades. Today is Wednesday. It's a Wednesday. And guess what? We finally have a little bit of news out of the Synod. Now, it's the 1 week marker in the books. So I guess they've done complete Wednesday, October the 4th, which was the opening day. Thursday, Friday. Whether or not they did weekend synods was unclear. Then we went Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They didn't pause the way America did to celebrate Christopher Columbus Day, even though he's an Italian national. So that's in the books, as I've said several times since Rules for Retrograde Synod coverage began last week. It's quite convenient that they're 7 hours ahead of me, and when I come to you, it's basically right after the day is concluded, so we're not missing tons of analysis to give. There hasn't been tons of analysis to give, aside from the craziness last week, which was fallout from the dubia being bandied back and forth, the two sets of them, before the Synod began. So there's plenty to talk about in the first week, even though they're controlling the information out. And, of course, the document, which is a Laudato Si sequel that Pope Francis released. It appears that at today's Synod proceedings, there was some talk about the themes of the Laudate Diem sequel to Laudato Si, hugging trees, saving the environment, teaming up with the UN and the world Illuminists, not in those terms. We'll get to that in a second, but if we have it, I'd like to play for you a clip on a very important issue that's dear to me, dear to you, the TLM, which we have not spoken of much over the last week and a half because we've been so busy dealing with the material heresies being soft-wired into the Synod. This is Traditionis Custodes, the takeaway of the Latin Mass. Diane Montaigne asked Cardinal Tobin, Nighty-Night baby Tobin, about if this is an all-inclusive, everyone's welcome, no one will be denied kind of synod, how come in the 2022 diocesan national proceedings of the synodality, they were addressing how and why to take away the TLM from TLM lovers, us traditionalists? Here's what Diane asked Cardinal Tobin. Here's what he replied.
Ruffini, and one for His Eminence. I'm trying to understand. So in each of the modules, there are different worksheets. So only a certain number of groups will be dealing with a particular worksheet for that week. I'd like to ask you, what is the relationship of the report that is developed by those small groups to the final document? What is the process, and who will decide? I'm assuming it would be the commission for the synthesis report. Who will decide which interventions go into the final report? If that's clear. And for His Eminence, Cardinal Tobin, as you know, being from the United States, and you had mentioned that when the church's doors are open, yes, sorry. When the church's doors are open, the church is more beautiful. Many Catholics who go to the traditional Mass, we might think of our own country of the United States, have even been banished from their parish church. This has happened in Washington, D.C. It's happened in other dioceses where there was the traditional Mass, and then the people were sent away, and the traditional Mass was banished from that parish church, even though these parishes and communities were thriving, seeking to live a good Catholic life. What do you say to the Catholics, particularly, let's say, from the United States, but not also here in Europe as well, who do not feel represented here, and who have not, there's nothing in the Instrumentum Laboris to address these people's concerns? what would you say to those Catholics who do not feel welcome?
Well, I would say the experience of feeling banished is something that is sadly part of the signs of the times, not simply for people who very much love the traditional Mass, but when I was Archbishop of Indianapolis, we had to close some parishes because they simply had lost their original purpose. And for example, there was a series of them that were built along a railroad line that no longer existed. But the resources of the diocese are not without limits, so we had to, with the people, discern what was the way forward. And we had to make some very painful decisions. And I would, in announcing the closure of parishes, I always tell people, if you think I'm being unjust or that I haven't heard, this is how you appeal it. And there was an interesting experience. In Newark, after a year or two, I received a letter from Indiana that the sender sounded familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. Something that happens with old age. And it turns out it was one of the people who was very, very upset about the closure of their parish, and in fact had appealed it to the max, as far as you can go in the Catholic Church, to the Signatura. And then after 2 years or 3 years, or whatever, in a very good new community, they said, this was good for us. We didn't know it at the time. Now, that's probably not totally, I can see it's not satisfactory to you. With people who love the traditional Mass, they're still under the conditions of the two motu proprios, as well as the decisions of the dicastery for divine worship, and there still is opportunities for it, but not perhaps what they've been accustomed to. So I know that it is not, it's caused a lot of grief among people who particularly identified with that Mass, but I don't think they've been banished from the Catholic Church.
That wasn't the question.
Now, Nighty-Night, baby, Cardinal Tobin, to tradition. Nighty-Night, baby, to sensible answers. Nighty-Night, baby, to even answering questions at the level of the call of the question. She asked, why is it an inclusivity-obsessed synod? And part of the expressed goals throughout this 2.5-year process is to exclude TLM-going Catholics, traditional Catholics. And he didn't give a straight answer. He said, well, I heard of a parish that had to close because a railroad was built through it. And those people later said, oh, fine. That's not the conditions for the possibility of Diane Montaña's question. She's saying, electively, Pope Francis, from 2 summers ago, Traditionis Custodes, where he's basically taking away in increments the Latin Mass. Why is he electing to do this, particularly when Pope Francis is known as the inclusivity guy? And why is this synod, with all of its inclusivity-obsessed folk, in the background working to further take away the TLM? And Cardinal Tobin didn't have an answer. He said, yeah, the experience of feeling vanished is crummy. Doesn't answer the question. You TLM people still operate with the boundaries of the disciplinary authority of, the Roman See or something like that. Okay, doesn't answer the question. We're asking, because this is Diane Montaña, who's a TLM lover and represents a huge swath of the American church, the church-going populace in the American church, the ones that actually go and practice the sacraments. Why are you excluding us? It is a simple question. he doesn't have to say, yes, we're excluding you. He could say, no, I understand it appears like we're excluding it. Actually, we're doing these things in the background that's going to make everything much better. Will make sense. Will bring two ostensibly parallel ends together so they'll meet. That's not what he said. He had no answer for her. By the way, Cardinal Tobin, after some of my joshing tweets at him the other day, where I said he's saying nighty-night baby to tradition, he has chosen to block me on Twitter. I can report that, everybody. What a shocker. Now, if you don't understand the history here, Nighty-Night Baby refers to a very, very suspicious tweet he made 3.5 years back. He was getting on a plane, and he wrote Nighty-Night Baby to... Do we have a news story on that?
Yeah, let me get that up. It's the link for the article is on Church Militant. It's in chat right now.
It's very suspicious.
Did you want me just to read the first couple of lines from
Yeah,
Church Militant?
sure. Let's get that.
First couple of lines from Church Militant. This was February 23rd, 2018. Oh. Cardinal Joseph Tobin tweets, "Nighty-night baby, I love you." So a bizarre tweet is provoking questions about New Jersey prelate Cardinal Joseph Tobin. Wednesday night, the Newark Archbishop bewildered followers by tweeting, supposed to be airborne in 10 minutes, "Nighty-night baby, I love you." As news of the post spread, the Associated Press reports Tobin deleted the message because it was, quote, being misinterpreted. According to the Archdiocesan Director of Communications, Jim Goodness, the tweet was accidental. Goodness is suggesting, quote, "Nighty-night baby, I love you," was a private message intended for the 65-year-old Archbishop's sister.
Okay, now
that's such a boomer moment. He meant to tweet something,
and
he meant to text something, and he tweeted it.
Yeah. Google, go buy my groceries. The grosser part is, do they explain his relationship with anybody else here?
Let me see if
lower
I can
in the
find
article,
it and I'll read it to you.
There is a suspected recipient of that tweet. I don't want to say who it is unless some news outlet like Church Militant has said who they think the suspected recipient of the tweet turned text turned tweet was. No, is that not it?
No.
It's been speculated with more than, well, it's been opined, let's say that it's a very strange thing for a celibate man with certain inclinations to text or tweet, even if he knows what the hell he's doing, to his sister. We think we know a very suspicious potential recipient of that tweet, and there's a lot of evidence there. It's a tweet that is romantic in nature. I don't think, if I had to guess, and I don't have this whole story up because I wanted to do Synod stuff, but I don't think that this romantically slipped text tweet was intended for a woman, romantic though it is. I know you guys are going to be shocked and scandalized, but it might not have been intended for his sister. It might not have even been intended for a woman. Now wasn't there? I thought we knew a potential name of a recipient. I thought there's a whole story behind this. Did Church Militant not go deeper on this one?
I'll look for another story, but there is some context. They say further in the article that as head of the Newark Archdiocese, Tobin has allowed his cathedral, the Cathedral Basilica of the Sacred Heart, to serve as a gay pilgrimage site.
Mm-hmm.
In 2017, he gave his blessing to an LGBT pilgrimage and mass at Sacred Heart. When asked if the event would promote chastity among participants, organizers refused to give a clear answer.
No way.
Tobin is among a handful of prelates who have publicly lauded the work of homosexualist Jesuit Father James Martin. In a statement praising Martin's 2017 book, Building a Bridge, Tobin said, quote, "Father Martin's brave, prophetic, and inspiring new book marks an essential step in inviting church leaders to minister with more compassion and in reminding LMNOP Catholics that they are as much as part of our church as any other Catholic. And
So
I will look for the other part of that.
yeah, there was he deleted this tweet, and he's not married. Now here's an American Conservative article written by Rod Dreher. Phil Lawler explains the following. Let's suppose that a man you know accidentally makes a public Twitter message that was obviously supposed to be read by only one person. The message reads, "Nighty-Night, baby, I love you." The man who sent that message is not married. What do you conclude? Right. Now, further suppose that the man in question is a celibate priest, in fact, a cardinal of the Catholic Church. Does that alter your conclusion? Right. After Cardinal Joseph Tobin of Newark sent that infamous Twitter message in 2018, and after the McCarrick scandal broke, same time of the same year, Rod Dreher observed in the American Conservative, at one point, giving men like Tobin the benefit of the doubt might have been defensible, not after McCarrick. Right. Oddly, Rod Dreher seemed to ignore his own advice, and it displayed at least some measure of willingness to accept the cardinal's unlikely explanation for his accidental message. In fairness, it is possible that Cardinal Tobin was telling the truth about mistakenly direct messaging his sister on Twitter. Yes, it's possible, but is it probable? Written here. A friend of mine, a priest who did not pull his punches, was not so willing to credit the innocent explanation. In fact, my friend, who died suddenly last year, found it difficult to understand why other prelates quietly accepted the cardinal's story. He wrote, "All the other calls for investigative commissions and policies and forced resignations of Wuerl and McCarrick missed the point. As long as Nighty-Night Baby is kept on his feet by his brother bishops, they're still playing Let's Pretend. They have no true concern for the souls of their brethren, nor a fortiori for those for whom their brethren are pastors. The problem is not how can we keep bishops from committing crimes. A branch of the military service in need of techniques to keep its members from criminally punishable treason would have, ipso facto, lost its reason for existence. But Tobin has announced to the world, by accident true, that he currently has a lover. I'm just quoting from the source, that he refuses to repent and turn from his state of sin, shown by the preposterous lie offered in lieu of the true explanation, and is in fact defying his brothers to call his bluff, which if they thought elementary sexual continence as a necessary condition of a priestly ministry, they would have done, and which they can do any moment. No papal action necessary. No petitions or open letters, no committees or canonical trials, just a couple man-to-man phone calls with a promise to make the substance of the call public unless Tobin did so first. As long as Tobin has a mitre, nothing whatsoever will have changed." That's good stuff. Cardinal Tobin, I'll remind you, has called the Catholic Catechism's language on the Father James Martin S.J.U. Naughty Pet issue very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate, boys. So there's I thought I remember many more details of the story. I have a good memory for stories. When I don't find them, I didn't want to do a whole 20-minute segment on this. When I don't find them, I get frustrated. There was more juiciness to this. I thought we had a suspected recipient. Maybe I'm misremembering. So that's all I'll say there about you. Cardinal Tobin, you naughty pet. And don't block me. Don't block me. You naughty pet. These guys are a joke, okay? All right, before we get... Now, we're going to get into the Synod, because he's relevant to the Synod. He's been saying all kinds of funny business about the Synod. Should we call it the Mortal Synod? I think we should start calling it the Mortal Synod.
Like Mortal Kombat?
Like Mortal Sin.
Oh.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
More reverent.
Mortal Kombat would be dope. I'd love to see these guys engaged in Mortal Kombat.
I don't think they have the physical
prowess
to be
pull
able
it
to
off.
handle that sort of thing.
So we'll get some pressers. That's good. You heard Tobin giving us a nonsense non-answer to Diane Montaigne about feeling banished. She said, just a note to emphasize, by Twitter she said this. It's not that people simply feel banished from parish church, as I mentioned in my question, giving the example of Washington, D.C. In some dioceses, they have been banished along with the traditional Latin Mass. Yeah, it's not just they feel banished. These guys like talking about feelings and positive aspects of naughty pet relationships and things like that. It's not just that they feel, this is demonstrable. So, she posted 3 hours ago that the same Cardinal Tobin at the October 10th briefing, earlier today in Italy, Cardinal Tobin said he hopes this synod will help us open the doors to LMNOP plus people in an even more significant way. What does that mean? This is Diane, asked what he'd say to the traditional Latin Mass Catholics who have been banished from their parish, and that's what he said. I played his response. So she's like, wait, you're going to open in a more significant way the doors to certain people that really can't have the doors open to them. But the main people of the Roman Catholic Church, tradition-loving, fully bimillennial people that live in both of the two millennia of the Roman Catholic Church, the people that are in full communion with the church that prefer the Latin Mass, the main jurisdictional rite, over the main jurisdictional amount of time, they're untouchables in the caste system of Francis's new church. So, okay, let's move away from the let's move away from that. I want to go to an Ed Penton tweet. I'm going to do that in a second. I want to remind people first, if you're getting blackpilled by all of this culpability, castigation of the good, and the elevation and lionization of the wicked that you see not only in the world, but now in your one true church, take a little bit of heart. How do you do that? Join tonight's second Lord of the Rings reading. We're going to be doing it on Wednesday nights for the next several months. No promises how long it'll last. 5, 6, 7, 8? I don't know. Because we're not going to be reading huge chunks. It started last Wednesday and it was phenomenal. It was so much fun and people are getting into it. It's like, why would you want to read this time of the season, October, with hay bales and scarecrows and pumpkins being carved into jack-o'-lanterns and kids trying to spook each other and kids trying to spook their parents and the weather cooling off and the deathly yet beautiful environs when you step outside, the crispness of the air, the electricity in the air that doesn't exist for any of the other seasons. Why would you want to read a story about the English countryside, which is really all the Shire is, Bilbo and Frodo and Sam's Shire. Beautiful English countryside, which begins on September the 22nd. We know day by day what happens. And Sam and Frodo being chased around hay bales and hiding under scarecrows in the fall harvest by 9 black riders. And they're trying to make it to the border of the Shire, to the inn at the Prancing Pony at Bree. It's beautiful. Backpacking in the autumn, what a great idea, specifically if you're being chased around by 9 ringwraith Nazguls. It's so much fun. We literally can recount what's going on day by day as we read in Hobbit world and in our world. It's so much fun. But you have to be a supporter of moi on Subscribestar and Locals. So do that right now if you want to join this reading group. What you're doing is you're buying into entertainment where you're going to come read and report back to a reading group once a week with paced reading for the next several months for just supporting us for $10 or $20 a month. It's great. You'll thank yourself. Yeah, we have a question about that.
Yeah, no, super chat question. Sorry, I have to go downstairs to get ready for a mother-daughter luncheon, so I'm just going to read the questions right now, just the super chats that are here. Somebody in chat asked a question last time about the College of Cardinals. They did another super chat follow-up. I asked last time, what if the College of Cardinals itself was invalid? If a future pope declares Francis invalid, wouldn't that mean all cardinals made by Francis are invalid? That's the first part.
Yes, correct. Sorry, I remember this question.
And then it goes on, and that would imply the pope declaring Francis invalid is himself invalid. How to get out of this infinite recursion, or can an invalid pope make valid cardinals?
Well, no, what you would have to do is do a special conclave and a real conclave to get the next pope, the real number 266, based on the vote of only those cardinals made by Benedict, or there are very few left by John Paul II. There are a couple, though. So that would be the conclave. Conclave A to make the real 266, and Conclave B to, I guess, pass a kind of judgment on Francis, if you buy into that sort of thing, by Bellarmine. So you'd have to have two conclaves. Both of them would have to be JP2 cardinals and Benedict cardinals. Yeah, none of the Francis cardinals work. If I declared Steph a cardinal today, or she declared me a cardinal today, it wouldn't be valid. Not just because she's some woman, but because I'm not Pope. So if Francis turned out not to be Pope, yeah, his cardinals would simply not count. Okay, but you'd have to go scoop up those cardinals, however few they are, and work like that. Okay. Now, here's what Ed Penton reported just a few hours ago, with images of the Synod on Synodality participants arriving and taking part in this morning's prayer. This week, Synod participants are discussing topics including, thank goodness we know now, justice and care for our common home. So that's what I meant by Laudate Deum topics, environmentalism, earth worship described as earth care. Also, how to create spaces for those who feel hurt by the church and unwelcomed. Oh, kind of like TLM Catholics? Diane Montagna asks Cardinal Nighty-Night, baby, you naughty pet, Tobin. No, not them. Only those who feel hurt by the church and unwelcomed in such ways as remarried divorce, people in polygamous marriages, which is remarried divorce. You think I don't know, even understand what that is. LMNOP plus people. Those are the people they're talking about. And guess what? That's an end quote. And guess what? Those are exactly the people I told you would be addressed and remediated by this Synod on Synodality. The small groups, back to Penton's suite, are divided according to themes discussed. Cardinal Gerhard Müller, former CDF prefect, he heads one. Father James Martin S.J., you naughty pet. You're such a naughty pet. Seated next to Cynthia Bailey Manns. That's a hilarious name for a feminist. Director of Adult Faith Formation of St. Joan of Arc's Catholic Community, Minneapolis, who is also pro-LMNOP and pro-ordination of women's, not just the mans, Mrs. Manns, but the women too.
The womans.
Womans. She wants those womans decans. And Mauricio Lopez Oropeza, formerly executive secretary of the Pan-Amazonian Ecclesial Network. I told you to watch out for the Pan-Amazonian stuff, because that's where they're going to use a bunch of the disciplinary nuances, like bishops laying hands on the deacons with their wives close at hand in a suspicious way. I talked about that last time. That's, I think, how they're going to finagle in all of the nuance. Thank you. He's now a member of the Vatican Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development. That one is the dicastery that is the most directly infiltrated by WEF types. There's also Cardinal Arthur Roche, prefect for the Dicastery of Divine Worship. He replaced Cardinal Sarah, delivering a message during morning prayer. That should be good. Okay, sorry, we have sewage problems here at the home. That's fun. I mean, it's really sewage problems in almost every stretch of the word at the Synod, right? I don't want to go all the way into that, but it's ugly, kind of nasty, icky muckiness.
Just everywhere.
Everywhere.
Just for context, that's what I've been running up and downstairs to do for this entire first half of this show, is dealing with our septic system.
Also, there's Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia, president of the Pontifical Academy for Life, and he's not really, in all senses of the word, for life. He's against church teaching on many of what are called the life issues, and he's in charge of the Pontifical Academy for Life. So we have pictures of all of them. They're not really good pictures, just, pictures of dry old men and dry old feminists, like Miss Man. Hilarious. Miss Mans. I like Mans. I like Mrs. Mans. If you say I like Mans, Cynthia Bailey Mans, then you're going to get a lot of buy-in from a lot of these cardinals. I like Mans too. Capital N? It's impossible not to have the gallows humor, isn't it? I mean, Jaffiel, it can't get any worse. Stuff just can't get any worse. So you gotta laugh. Got a joke. Got a Josh in the gallows. Holy cow, man. So if you didn't tune in right at the beginning, you're going to be shocked. Cardinal Tobin of Newark. He blocked me on Twitter. How am I ever going to survive without reading his Twitter feed, which, it's really famous for the last 4.5 years. Nighty-Night, baby, I love you. This ostensibly celibate man tweeted out, and being a boomer, not understanding the difference between tweeting and texting. So, I mean, he's being honest. He said, look, we want to open the doors to nuances on Catholic sexual teaching. This means he's really saying nighty-night, baby, tradition, I hate you. Nighty-night, baby, to anathemas on irreformable teaching. Orthodoxy and its opposite, heterodoxy. He's saying nighty-night, baby, not I love you. He doesn't love the orthodoxy. He said that at the Synod as he gave this really bad answer to Diane Montaigne, who asked a really incisive, good question. You gotta love the needling questioning by Miss Montaigne. I tell you, man. Did you? I don't know if you follow me on Twitter. Glenn Beck said that he said this as he talked to Dave Rubin about womb rental, and condoned it. He said, my church, Glenn Beck is a Mormon. He said, my church, I think, has the oldest teaching. I think it has something like the oldest teaching on like things like men, woman, marriage, womb rental. And he's not being ironical. Here's literally what he says. It's hilarious. I'll read my tweet because I like it.
My religion answer. I am, you know me, I am a deeply religious man, and my religion says man and a woman, that is the basic building block of family. We're probably the clearest church on this because it's been in our doctrine for 200 years.
200?
So, answer.
Whoa!
I am, you know me, I am a deeply religious man, and
Dude, that is old. In this clip, Glenn Beck brags of Mormonism, which was established in 1830. It's not quite 200 years old. Almost, though. That's going to be old, man. Its doctrine is ancient as 200 years to Dave Rubin. Bro, that's almost as old as the invention of the flexible urinary catheter. Not quite as old as that. That's almost as old as the graham cracker, which is a year older than Mormonism. The graham cracker, that's almost as old as graham crackers. Sick. That's almost as old as the swivel chair, which is invented in 1776. Come on, man. I mean, it's a meme. Glenn Beck is a meme of himself. He's just provided tons of hilarious Twitter content for me. He really thinks this is old. They're not quite 200 years old. they don't really have the best track record on one man, one woman marriages, if you know what I mean. A lot of people think, rightly, that Mormonism was founded on like one man, several woman marriages or something like that. So it's an odd point to bring up, and it's also an odd point to bring up because he's saying how ancient and venerated this old faith is, time-tested. And that's also ironic because it's a very kooky, young American religion, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious. I don't even know why I'm talking about that. It's just there's been so much goodness on Twitter lately from all the badness in the world that you have to remark. I want to point you guys to. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the Synod. I want to point you to a show that I hope to do on Friday or Saturday. Dr. Micah Hickson, friend of this show, tweeted that Professor Roberto de Mattei is now backing Father Murr's claims about the Vatican investigation into ecclesial Freemasonry that found that prelates Baggio and Bonini, the author of the New Mass, were indeed Freemasons. I hope to have both of these fine gentlemen, Father Murr and Dr. Mattei, on the show very soon. I'm already communicating. It's fascinating. You'll always hear cope from Novus Ordo lovers and normies in the church. Like, Bonini wasn't a proven Freemason. The evidence is much more overwhelming than what I thought before. It's shocking stuff. So, expect a show on that soon. That'll be really good. I know sometimes I say that and it's, a couple weeks instead of 3 days. I just want to get both of those parties on board. I also have some big shows I'm probably going to be doing off of YouTube. One is on Myron Fagan's UN created by the Illuminati claims. This is a classic by Myron Fagan in 1967. I did a big Twitter thread on it. I'm really excited to do like a listen to the record of Myron Fagan. It'll take about 2 hours. I want to just react to it and maybe do it with some other Fagan enthusiasts like my friend, quite frankly, maybe Jay Dyer. They know a lot about this guy. It is the most fascinating thing I've ever listened to on YouTube. The Myron Fagan Council on Foreign Relations and the Illuminati. And I'll probably do that off of YouTube on the Rumble and any other alternative sites. Also, I have a big interview that should appear on those alternative sites. Okay, I don't know what else to tell you about the Synod on Synodality. There's some actual news. If you take the 4 or 5 shows I've done in the previous week and a half, you now know that over the last 2.5 years, you have been beguiled by people that are either trying to lie or have been beguiling themselves, the normies in the church, saying this Synod on Synodality is not seeking to wage a permanent color revolution whereby the substance of the church is changed from an errorless body of doctrine and dogma into one that now has contradicted itself. That's media spin. Francis is so faithful. He is a goodly son of the church. He doesn't want change. He's told all these people to pound sand. Well, in the last 2 weeks, for those who had buried their head in the sand about the last big synods, 2014, 2015, it turns out they were completely wrong. Everything they said was wrong. Francis not only was sympathetic to communion for divorced and remarried, but he changed it. Amoris Laetitia did mean what I said it meant at the time, communion for the divorced and still remarried. He put that in the magisterium. Then after he put it in the magisterium, he finally answered a dubia about it. Not the original dubia, but a dubium that was published the day before the synod opened. He played some games with the truth in that 2014, 2015, 2016 process. What were the games? Several times he said, I will not change doctrine. This is the big takeaway from Synod on Synodality 2023. Several times, Francis, between 2014 and 2016, before he changed doctrine, and I still don't know what to make of that. Don't ask me. I don't know. He said, I will not change doctrine. You know, JP2 clarified this in the 80s, and that's final. I'm not going to change doctrine. Then he did it. He had Cardinal Casper, who was trying to change the doctrine. The idea sprang from his head like Athena from Zeus's head. He was the one pushing communion for the divorced and civilly remarried. He pushed it under JP2. He ran a little interference for Francis in between the two family synods, where he said, oh, I've fallen out of favor. It's not going to happen. It was a little ruse. So Francis has done that in between the Amazon Synod 2019 and now. He's told people, no, we can't do it. We can't make women deacons. We can't open up LMNOP. We're not interested in making married priests. And a few times he might have even, I can't remember, has he actually defended Amoris Laetitia by saying that it doesn't mean communion for the divorced and civilly remarried? I don't remember. That might just be the Pope's planners. But each of the previous 3 or 4 items were vouchsafed by Francis himself. And it's part of the way that he lies, tricks, and defiles Catholic tradition. He uses weaponized ambiguity at times, directness at other times, and outright lies at others on the road to synodality. On the road to what synodality means, mortal synod. This is the mortal synod on synodality. What it means is changing timeless, unalterable doctrine, changing it, altering it, reversing it, in a way that doesn't get him thrown out of the pontificate forthwith, right away. That's synodality, okay? So everyone says, what does this even mean? Synodality means reforming irreformable doctrine without the reformer getting tossed out on his ear. That's what it means. And they're doing it with LMNOP. They're doing it with women deacons. They put the cap on the other synod issue. Now it's just done. And you guys accepted it. How does that feel? All of you people out there, I'm being honest now. All of you people that have listened to the talking heads, lies, at least self-delusion, on the 2014-2015 Synod on Synodality and Amoris Laetitia, all of you folks got hoodwinked. I mean, it wasn't even a clever hoodwink either, because in 2016 he said, look, it's a done deal. And it's happening right now again, where you're going, he's not going to change doctrine. That's what synodality is. It's changing doctrine while telling you, I'm not going to change doctrine. Francis his sentences always begin with the prefatory clause. Doctrine is what it is, and I can't change it, comma, but what we're going to do to change it is this. It's this with a that. That's all it is. And it's happening right now. And no, there's nothing you or I can do to stop it. But talk about it for what it is. Call the thing by its name. I'm not saying that you or I as lay people can stop it. First, let it play out. Read the post-synodal apostolic exhortation with a hermeneutic not of expecting continuity, because that's not what's going to happen. We've seen the plays being called in real time. Just read it with a skeptical eye, and you will see they are taking us on the road to revolution. Well, are they going to kill the TLM altogether? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't predicted that. I made a prediction last time about how they're going to get women deacons in. Ambiguous hand placement. Ambiguous placement of like a deacon's wife as he is ordained. Something like that. I do think they're going to do it here. I do think they're going to do it in the exhortation. We'll see. There will be, I think, language in the Instrumentum Laboris, which hasn't been published. I don't think the Relatio is going to be published. We'll see in another week, or less than another week. Will they publish the midterm report? It's called the Relatio. Probably not. They learned their lesson at 2014. But if it is, the final working document is more likely to be published. That, I think, you will see. LMNOP will be big step toward normalized. Okay, and you saw that in some of the more specifics of today's working groups. It's all becoming clear. Now, it's not good. It's not good. Michael Knowles, who had me on last week to talk about the Synod, just said, "Nighty-night, baby, I love you," about Montaigne's tweet. It's absolutely a normal thing to say, isn't it? It's a totally celibate thing to say. Hilarious. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I'm looking at your comments here. So here's the thing. Tonight's the reading group for LOTR. Got to become a Locals or Subscribe Star supporter. It's going to be fun. People, ask anybody that joined this thing. It's a big reading group. It's a lot of fun. So far, we're only doing half of chapter 1 last week, half of chapter 1 for this week. That means if you read all of chapter 1, which is not that long, now over a long lunch, you can be caught up for tonight. You got to join Locals or Subscribe Star to support me, by the way. If you want to support me in a donative way, a strictly donative way, go to timothyjgordon.com and click donate. Boy, that's good too. And buy the books associated with this channel. This one, Catholic Republic, rejecting Americanism, pushing isolationism, and above all, pushing subsidiarity at the level of our government. And the requirement to understand subsidiarity, understanding Roman Catholicism. That book just became much more relevant over the last 5 days. Also, of course, by Steph's book, Ask Your Husband. We get so many emails about marriages this thing helps. Even people that are engaged say, changed our whole relationship around. Even after we got engaged, we both started reading and it changed our whole situation. I haven't been talking about this one so much, but if you want to save Western civilization, don't send your kids to college. Encourage your young men to get a trade, to find a virtuous young maiden and marry at 19, 20, 21. Don't go to college. Get a trade. Get a really good education. Hopefully you're homeschooling them for that. Go to Retrograde Classical Academy. I have like 18 classes on there that are very cheap or free. That helps homeschoolers. We're probably going to do an Aristotle class, by the way. We're probably going to rerun a Nicomachean ethics class in late fall. Live. Not just the recorded module there. A live one. Maybe fast. Maybe we'll kind of run through it between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's the most important book of Western philosophy for philosophy muggles to study, for philosophy non-specialists to study. It's the only one you need in the Western canon of Western philosophy. You, retrogrades and parish orphans, if you have not read all 10 books of Nicomachean ethics and studied them and had someone break down the meaning for you, you should. This is the one book in Western philosophy that every adult Roman Catholic, or really any adult Christian or secular conservative, should study. The one. That's a big claim, and I make it. We're probably going to do that in late fall. That's in recorded version on Retrograde Classical Academy, but in live form, there's nothing like it. People find that class electric, and I've been getting more requests for that live. Again, if anything huge happens at the Synod, I'll drop what I'm doing. I'll come and I'll do a live stream. But until that happens, I've been ready to do 4, 5, 6 shows a week here on Rules for Retrogrades. But we're just not getting enough info to justify that. So I've only been 3 shows a week. Wait for that Roberto de Mattei Vatican Cardinal report on Freemasonry inside the Vatican from 1978. It is fascinating. That should be later this week, I hope. Never fly off the bark. Stay here in the church. Stay home. Things will be okay. We just don't exactly see the path now. Our faith is being tested. Things are going to be okay. Though all of the, if you work out all the campaign paths, they all seem to lead to danger and trouble. Have faith.